New video has been released showing the inside of the ferry as it began to tilt. The public address system clearly instructing passengers to stay put. It's more dangerous if you move. Crew, however, appear to have acted differently, reportedly some of the first off the ship. The captain is under Coast Guard questioning, investigators also wanting to know why the ferry deviated from a government-approved route, reportedly making a sudden turn just before it got into trouble. Day 2 of this disaster forced home the extent of the challenges faced by this enormous rescue operation. Bad weather, strong swirling tides, just 20 centimeters visibility for divers. For all the frenetic action around the sunken ferry, searching it for survivors is proving all but impossible. President Park Geun-hye paid a visit to the site, expressing her own concern at the slow progress, vowing every effort on behalf of the families. Later, she met some of them at a sports center on Jindo Island where they've been gathering.
This wasn't supposed to happen, but it happened. I'm ordering a swift investigation to find out the cause, so that we can severely punish those responsible.
For other parents gathered at a nearby port, the ordeal was only becoming more grueling. You're just repeating what they're saying on the news, one woman tells officials. They say there have been too few dives, that time is running out for their children. Frustration fueled by unverified reports of text messages and Facebook posts coming from inside the ferry.
We think 60 to 70 people are still alive, but when we talk to them, they just worry about whose job it is. They keep passing us on to somebody else.
Later, police said they'd checked the phone accounts of the missing and concluded that the text messages had been faked. They promised to track down and punish those responsible. Many of the parents on this dock stood vigil all through last night and now through another long, awful day. What they want, of course, is what so far authorities haven't been able to provide them: some real news of the fate of their loved ones. Some more details have emerged on the investigation. Coast Guard officials saying a deviation from a government-recommended route might have contributed to the sinking, also noting a sharp turn made by the vessel just before it got into trouble. They're also questioning the captain, reportedly one of the first off the ship. Investigators will want to know why passengers were told to stay on board as water rushed in, and why only one of the ferry's lifeboats had been deployed. Back at the port, scores of parents were returning from a trip to see for themselves the rescue effort at sea, a huge response to a national tragedy made up of hundreds of individual ones.
Harry joins us now live from a boat off the coast of Jindo. Harry, I believe you're traveling to the site of the accident.
That's right, we're on the way there now. What's happening out there, we understand today, is that 3 large crane ships are due to be deployed to the scene. They're hoping to be able to start the work of lifting the ship even a little, perhaps to improve access for the divers. We understand about 9:30, which is in an hour and a half's time, and again at about 3:25. Those are the 2 periods during today when the tides will be at their optimum in terms of trying to get access to the boat. Unfortunately, several attempts to get in by divers yesterday were fruitless, and there were also reports that the authorities have been trying to pump air inside, oxygen, to try and help anybody who might still be alive in air pockets. But when questioned about that by reporters at a briefing yesterday evening local time, how can you do that without divers being able to get access? Authorities seem to go back on that, retracting that, saying that they hadn't been able to do that. So that only fuels the anger and the fears of the relatives that are waiting to hear any news about any hope of rescue, even at this late stage.
Yeah, an agonizing wait, Harry. Now, the search and rescue teams have been facing very difficult conditions, the bad weather, murky water, strong currents, and it doesn't look like conditions have improved.
Well, the forecast is that the conditions are going to improve from around now onwards today. It is, as you can see, still pretty foggy, but the sea is a bit calmer. The rain has eased off. So, as I say, there are these 2 moments during the day when they're going to, at least the conditions will be better than they have been for the last 24 hours, perhaps, to try and gain access to the ship. One other note, the number of dead has spiked considerably overnight. 25 bodies now recovered in total. There are speculation coming from the authorities that perhaps the currents have changed somewhat, swirling around inside the boat and helping to draw out some of the bodies that were wearing life jackets, and so those bodies have floated to the surface.
All right, Harry, thank you very much for that update there. Harry Fawcett off the coast of Jindo is on his way to the site of that ferry disaster there in South Korea. Thanks, Harry. Now, on Tuesday, the ferry set sail from Incheon on what was to be a 14-hour journey to the tourist island of Jeju. The Sewol is a 146-meter-long ship that had 475 passengers on board. Most of them were on the middle decks. Some rescued passengers say survivors may be in two places on these decks, the game room and the restaurant. With the ship now submerged, the Coast Guard is pumping air into the hull in hopes that survivors are still inside, as Harry was telling us. Now, Christine Cridge is the medical director of Diving Diseases Research Center. She says environmental factors are stacked against those who may still be alive.
Given the size of the ferry, there is a possibility that there may be some survivors who survived the initial capsize and might have found themselves in an air pocket. From that point on, obviously the other challenges that we've got to face, I appreciate air is being pumped into the vessel, but what the actual survivors will next be facing as their major challenge for survival will be rising carbon dioxide levels, because that in itself could prove fatal.